All right, thanks for staying with us on Sunrise Daily. Right now, we turn our attention to the Lagos building collapse and how we can bring that to an end from what you have heard so far. This is not a new phenomenon, so let's take a good look at it now as we engage Dr. Town Planner Alou Bonilla, former president, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Is this an intractable problem?
The structures collapse all over the world. And therefore, the fact that structures collapse is a reality. But the real question is the collapse avoidable? Could we have avoided the collapse? And that's the question.
I think
if there is no accident, there will not be a word like accident. If there's no collapse, there will not be a word like collapse. And therefore, even when you have accident driving, so collapse should be seen as an occasional accident, which could occur. But most of the collapses we have around us are avoidable. I think that's the real issue.
On the one hand is the fact that these collapses cost lives, and that is what's really disturbing
That's
here.
what gives everybody concern.
Yeah. So you say it is avoidable.
A lot of it that we're having in Nigeria are avoidable.
What is responsible for them in the first place?
Okay. You know, when a structure, I keep on using structure rather than building because I don't want to isolate buildings alone, collapses. Until you investigate the collapse, you may not be sure of the exact details of why it collapsed. Because the experience you pick up from investigating one is different from the experience when you investigate another, for the reasons why they collapse, because they don't collapse for the same reasons. For example, I was the chairman of the committee that investigated a synagogue collapse. It was a different ballgame when we investigated Lekki Gardens collapse. Different situations entirely, different findings. And that is why until you really investigate a collapse, you cannot make a definite professional statement. But generally, when you want to look at a collapse, you start looking at first the preambles, I would say. What is the nature of the soil? Did they carry out any geotechnical investigation, any soil test, to determine the load-bearing capacity of the soil? You look at the slope. Is the slope of the land, has it been...
Whose responsibility is it to
there are people, there are special areas of engineering, geotechnical engineering, and they're there, consultants, to do it.
What role does government play in this process?
You see, the government is to ensure at the point at which government is going to do the planning permit, that is permitting you to build a house, they ought to ensure that they generally, as part of the requirements of your submission, a lot of documents are requested. In some cases, they will ask for, if they think that area, the soil is not reliable, they will insist that you bring a soil test along with a structural address.
Do you think that is usually done in many of the cases that was mentioned in our report?
No. See, ordinarily, at least in Lagos, I know that the town planning office requests for this document. And I think the liability is now on the engineer that conducts the thing if anything was found wrong. And that's why when you investigate, that's why you arrest some people, even professionals, to come and answer for what they have done, which are not in order.
And how soon, how often does that happen?
No. I mean, if anything goes wrong, you are called to order. Also, a registered and qualified professional that is involved. But our experience, to go to the issue, is that Very few cases of our professionals being involved. What we have found out, a lot of the cases, is that a lot of the people that were involved are quacks. In actual fact, some of them, they run away. They just run away. You can't find them because they don't have any, their name is not in any register, they're not qualified anywhere, so they just run away. But a lot of us Nigerians prefer to use substandard people rather than use professionals for our work.
We'll come to that.
Yes.
But what is disturbing here is what you have also mentioned here, which is the fact that, many times when these things happen, investigations are carried out, but ultimately no one seems to get reprimanded for it. No one is punished.
Oh, no, that is not very true. The people that were involved in the synagogue are in court. 2 qualified and registered engineers are on trial.
How many years going?
Okay. That, I don't know whether it's the judicial process, whether it's government process. Either way, we have done our own technical job of investigating it and giving a report of why it fell, who are liable. And so we left it to government. We don't go ahead to prosecute. It's government that prosecutes. And so if it has taken government 7 years to prosecute, I can't explain that, and I can hold brief for anybody on
Some people have also alleged, the collusion of some government officials, for instance, in the case of what happened at Itafaji, that those houses were marked and should have been evacuated, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, you see, people accuse officials. They forget that no official, no matter how emotional he feels about the matter, can go ahead and demolish anybody's property. It must get an instruction, at least at the minimum, from the commissioner, if not even the governor. It's clearly stated in the law. So
does that mean that those instructions were not carried out because the houses were already marked, clearly?
The houses were marked. Somebody must say demolish. Because, you see, going to demolish involves making some money available. I mean, those are the practical things that people don't talk about. They will just say, go and demolish. You have to go and rent Caterpillar. You got to get security guys. You got to fuel the Caterpillar. So somebody must make the money available to the officials you have direct that is supposed to go and do the final work at the end of the day.
Go back. Let's go back to what the governor said on this particular case that we're looking at. You remember that the governor said when he was at the site that those houses had been marked, but that and of course the instruction was for the house owners to leave the place so that the houses could be pulled down, but the governors were recalcitrant. What should have happened in that case?
You see, government has a power that is called the power of eminent domain. What that power means is, even the house you are living in, government can come there and say, I have taken it over. And all that the law says, the government must pay you compensation. So government has the power of eminent domain. So if it refuses from you using it, then you don't blame anybody for it.
Is that inferring then that government was
government
slow,
could have got them out,
but government didn't? So are you saying that can we say then that government was responsible for the deaths of these people?
No. You see, let me say, government largely is liable. Not this specific government, but governments, as far as I can remember, in this country, are liable. More than 15, 18 years ago, there has been a report which shows there are about 400 and something buildings that are defective structurally. The committee that was set up by the committee of the government itself, Ministry of Physical Planning themselves, this report was submitted more than 15 years ago. They identified, out of the 400 and something houses identified that time, I'm not sure 20 has been demolished up to today. During the immediate past governor of Lagos State, he had this committee under General Rish in year 2010. From the report, which I have, he had visited 77 locations and wrote a report to government. Very detailed report with photographs, with everything.
Locations?
With exact locations, with photographs, with everything. There's even not a white paper on that report till today. Talk less of conscious action. So It's government all along. It's not just a particular government. I can go on and say what happened in each person's tenure. You see, the problem is once it comes to the issue of come and demolish somebody's house, sentiments come into it. Unfortunately, even...
What kind of sentiments? Political sentiments?
People, you see how much has been spent in building the house. They start on that sentiment. Then political sentiments come into it. Moral sentiment, all sorts of things. Even the press will not help. Oh, they are demolishing people's houses. You see, it is when it collapses like this that everybody is talking about it. If the government has been proactive and gone to, they say, no, it's because the man is not in our political party. That's why they want to demolish his house. Oh, because the man is not a Yoruba man. That's why. You see, the Nigerians are so used to all these finding excuses for what they have done wrong.
Mr. Jai,
yes,
from what happened,
yes,
and from images that we have seen of the general overview of the location of this latest occurrence, what are the risks?
Yes, see, let me tell you, as a general,
and what needs to be done
as a general foundation. You see, Lagos Island, that part of what we call Lagos Island today, is essentially a swamp. It was a swamp, highly congested swamp. And
like Morocco?
Yeah. And town planning came into Nigeria through that route. And what happened? There was a breakout of bubonic plague in 1929. A lot of people died. And it was during the colonial era. And therefore, they had to come and do reclamation work and move people from Lagos Island to Surulere, rehabilitation. So, and at the time some of these houses were built, I don't think the piling was a way of life. Therefore, most of them probably have at best the type of foundation they have, except to check, you may not be sure, but definitely most of them are not on piles. And therefore, you find yourself in a situation where the soil ab initio was unreliable. That is, it's a swampy underland. The technology you used to build, technology has moved over the time, but you couldn't demolish your house to come and start piling. Then thirdly, age. Even human beings age and die. But people don't want to agree that their house has aged.